massively overrated. I continually fail to understand why The Godfather is hailed as the greatest movie of all time. I've seen it twice, a second time just to make sure, and I have to tell you that I sat there in a stupor, bored out of my mind. And I'm not a teenager raised on MTV. I'm in my 30s and am absolutely devoted to movies. I've seen as many classics, American and foreign, that I can get my hands on. But, for me, The Godfather ranks alongside Singin' in the Rain as the most overrated films of all time. Singin' in the Rain, at least, I get, it's just my intense dislike for Donald O'Connor that makes me dislike this film. But, The Godfather, it's just a bland epic about a bunch of moronic gangsters, with Marlon Brando giving a campy performance, and riddled with repulsive violence. Give me a break. The fact that this movie is so beloved has had the direct result that nowadays we got absurdly worse and worse films every year, created by clueless filmmakers. An ugly movie. The Godfather was a sickening experience the first time I saw it in its initial release, and it hasn't changed. I thoroughly disliked the film's spirit, finding it very ugly at its heart. I saw little justification for its existence, was sorry I saw it, and have tried to forget it. I hate this movie. What a load of boring drivel. From the beginning to the end, this film neither excited nor engaged me. The characters seemed utterly false, the story utterly mundane. There have been far better gangster films, The Untouchables, Donnie Brasco, hell, even Bugsy Malone is better than this. And the worst thing is, everyone seems to love it. Why? The best movie ever. This, better than Pulp Fiction. This, better than LA Confidential. This, better than Scarface. This is a bandwagon best film ever, and each of you knows that you are lying and following the trend. Oh, and the length of the film was just the icing. It should have ended about 3 times before it did finally end. I don't know where all of you get off. Oh, I like The Godfather, you know, and the Beatles, and bread, and water, and breathing. Please, can we get out of the mentality that we have to venerate this movie? Sure, watch it once. Recall that the baby boomer generation will revere it until they die off. I say at that point we don't show this movie to kids born in the 21st century. Next. Are you all out of your friggin' minds? This movie was more boring than church. They just talked and talked. They hardly ever shot anybody. Michael Corleone is a little girly man. And that Sonny guy, no one intimidating, is named Sonny. When he got blown to bits, I laughed hard. Then there's Vito. What's with this guy? Does he have marshmallows stuffed in his mouth? Why does he look like that? And what's with that name, Vito? Who names their son after a presidential command? It could only be one type of people, hillbillies. Italian mafia hillbillies. If you want a real good movie, go see Santa with Muscles. He'll stop them Corleones. A bore fest from beginning to end. I saw this movie when it first came out in the movie theaters. It was the first movie I seriously considered walking out of. Up to that point in my life, I had never fidgeted so much in a movie. I blame the director. His pacing was so ponderous that the story seemed to go on, and I could hardly wait for it to be over. The whole Godfather series is vastly overrated. Okay, if by 100, you mean it's worth seeing if you get paid $100, but I would not even see it again for that much. Worst time of my life, and the only reason I didn't leave is because it was raining outside. This movie was the worst. I hope critics get shot for saying otherwise. The most overrated and boring thing I have ever seen. It was just a bunch of stuff that happened for 3 hours. No point, no meaning, no feeling. Get off the bandwagon. The most overrated movie of all time. I will never, ever understand the love affair people have with this movie. It is completely and utterly overrated. Marlon Brando is not the god of an actor and people make him out to be. Neither is Al Pacino for that matter. The acting is pretty stiff and unbelievable. It was so freaking long. Ugh, I hate this movie. A vastly overrated movie. Childish romantic view of common criminals. In no way equal to Goodfellas, which really captures the truth about the underworld. The director must have been fantasizing about some imaginary Sicilian aristocracy drinking too much vino, or simply mining a vein he knew would be commercially successful. There are excellent performances by Brando, Pacino, and Caan among others, but the operatic excesses of the film make a mockery of reality. The individual performances are wasted. Not unlike Apocalypse Now, The Godfather is an arrogant film with little genuine substance, and undermines an accurate understanding of the subject matter. It substitutes a yarn for a true story and, while it is entertaining, it contributes to the deterioration of our culture. Like The Gladiator, it grabs your attention, then tells you lies. The Godfather is the cinematic equivalent of Baroque architecture, excessive, gaudy, and not worth the work to create. Masterpiece of shit. The ratio of 10 ratings is an excellent example of how dependent people's minds are on the status quo. If you were to watch this movie without ever hearing about it, you would most likely find it to be a well-scripted dull movie, and nothing more. This is the only movie I've ever watched that has put me to sleep. I imagine that the entire movie could have been put into about 1/8 the time and still have retained all of its meaning. OMFG. This movie is so overrated it's disgusting. A 9.1 on IMDb. CAT scans, please. I've never seen a worse depiction of Italians in my life. More like caricatures and stereotyping Italians from the turn of the century as smug-talking idiots with, "I'm gonna bust you upside your fucking head" as the main dialogue. Everyone is depicted as a ghetto-talking grease monkey. Marlon Brando is a disgusting fat slob of a mafia boss. His offer you can't refuse scene is so laughably bad. All the rest of the cast looks like something out of a bad B-movie, with tough guy talk and slapping women around to be macho. James Caan is simply awful. He always tries hamming it up in every movie he's in, as does Al Pacino. The movie itself is a disjointed mess with nothing but boring chatter and hearsay scenes in between shooting people up or beating people up. Sure, the mafia was bad and terrorized people, but this movie just basically makes it look like a pay us for protection racket type thug movie. Overrated, badly acted, and boring. I give it a big fat 0. Appalling rubbish. Brando was about the only semi-decent thing in this, mainly because he was hardly in it, and unlike Brando, overlong, poorly edited piece of garbage. First things first, the movie looks like crap. Gordon Willis's cinematography is absolutely appalling. The editing is just bizarre. It looks like it was made by a filmmaker trying to simulate tension or sadness and tragedy, but had no idea how to use the tools an experienced director would have used. The music made me want to smash my brains in, and James Caan as an Italian-American gangster was just ridiculous. It would be like getting Danny Glover to play Macaulay Culkin's character in Home Alone. But then again, as someone who has seen a lot of the movies produced by Coppola, like Peggy Sue Got Married, Tucker the Man and His Dream, The Cotton Club, Finian's Rainbow, The Rainmaker, and many more poorly filmed, dated badly, written pieces of forgettable rubbish, I should have expected The Godfather to be as appalling as I found it. But as everyone who has ever seen The Godfather who happens to be a film buff and not just a normal guy in the street, who will watch the occasional movie, they tend to drool over this muddy-looking scrappy over long bore fest. All in all, I would say this movie should probably be destroyed so morons can't talk about how it is the holy grail of all movies ever made. The Godfather is a film that's been praised for its impact on cinema history, but in reality, it's an overrated and poorly made movie. The story is dull and unengaging, with characters that are impossible to connect with or care about. The pacing is slow and plodding, making the film feel like it's dragging on forever. The acting is also subpar, with actors delivering their lines with all the emotion of a brick wall. The dialogue is clunky and uninspired, with no memorable or quotable lines to speak of. The film also lacks any real sense of tension or excitement, making it a chore to sit through. The cinematography is nothing special, with bland and forgettable shots that do nothing to add to the film's atmosphere. The soundtrack is also unremarkable, with forgettable music that fails to enhance the movie in any meaningful way. Overall, The Godfather is a film that's more hype than substance. It's a boring, forgettable movie that fails to live up to its reputation as a cinematic masterpiece. Save yourself the time and watch something else instead.